Renee Bach was only 19 years old when she moved from her small town in Virginia to eastern Uganda. In 2009, Bach founded Serving His Children, a feeding program for severely malnourished kids. The NGO quickly grew into an inpatient medical facility. That heroic image obscured a deadly truth. Renee Bach had no medical training. When it comes to missionary work and humanitarian aid in the developing world, what is the line between helping and hurting? We'll find out in the new podcast, The Missionary. Listen to The Missionary on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
Now let's get this party started.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
And I want to start the show with this, is that this virus is rough, right? But one of the things it's really illustrating is that people that are adaptable are just going to hit home runs out of this. Rigid guy, brittle guy, get off my lawn guy is not. Yesterday was a great example, and I hope the PGA and the USGA learned a little bit from it. I know, golf guy, you got to move the bifocals down. You pull those pants a little higher. Going to hit your chest one of these days. Take a deep breath and follow the NFL. The NFL has acknowledged they stole from the XFL. They steal from college football. The NFL's like, we want a better product. We want to add more personality to our product. So we didn't like celebrations. And then the NFL went, you know what? We watched the NBA. We watched all the NBA social media, and the NFL's like, we're going to do some celebrations. Oh, ratings went up. NFL's added cameras. NFL steals from college football. They steal from the XFL. They're not too proud. It's a television show. It's why they dominate the universe. They tell networks what they're going to pay. No other sport does. Golf should watch that exhibition yesterday and not be ashamed of saying, wow, there's some cool things there. An occasional golf cart. I get the golfer, television cameras, have him mic'd. I mean, watching Phil and Tiger in a golf cart was riveting. Now, the Masters is not going to do it. But for the occasional golf cart experience, put a handful of golfers in golf carts. You get what yesterday had is what golf doesn't. Personality. Did everybody know Justin Thomas was this funny? I didn't. It took a golf exhibition with football players to discover that Justin Thomas is really, really funny. We knew Mickelson was funny. We knew Tiger was intense. But golf has a history of being entitled and stodgy and tradition and stuffy. And one of the greatest golf ratings of our lives, when Tiger Woods exploded. He was new. He was different. He threw an occasional club. He swore. He looked like a football player. America said, hey, we like personality here. And golf was like, whoa, he threw a club. Everybody I know has thrown a golf club. It's okay. Nobody dies. You'd prefer they don't do it at the Masters. But golf exploded with Tiger Woods because Tiger was different. He was more intense. He looked like Ed Reed. He was all jacked up. And he had this torque, and he was coming out of his shoes, and he was bombing at 350. And everybody's like, you know, the other guy I love watching is Dustin Johnson. Totally flawed, some baggage, a little unhinged, sorts of unravels on the golf course a couple times a year. I love watching him play. We all unravel on a golf course. It's called personality. We're all human. I hope that the golf gods and the people who run the sport do what the NFL does. Borrow, mic players, mic an occasional caddy, ask the players during a round on a Friday or I'm not talking you have to do this down the stretch on a Sunday, but on a Friday, a Saturday, early Sunday. Hey, Justin, 9th hole, what are you using? Explain it. These guys are so good. Tiger and Phil Mickelson are the guys, I've argued this before. To make the PGA Tour is the most professional athlete in the world. You don't have teammates. You have to pay for everything yourself. You have a bad back nine on Thursday. You're not even allowed to golf on the weekend. You didn't make the cut. There are certain tournaments where the field is so loaded, if you have back-to-back bad holes, and they're trying to make these courses tough. If you have back-to-back bad holes, I'm not talking a snowman, an 8. I'm talking a double bogey. You're out of the tournament, and you're paying your own way home. And everybody wants to golf, right? It's fun. You drive by golf. Every old guy wants to be a golfer, right? To be able to make the tour and stay on the tour and succeed on the tour is unbelievable. These guys are fun. They're smart. They're not going to be bothered by the occasional question from a golf commentator. You know, whoever's up in the booth. Hey, let's go to Justin Thomas twice today. I thought there were so many great examples. I'm watching my friends in their businesses right now dealing with this virus. I mean, just the smartest people are figuring out I have a buddy who runs a pro sports team. Tom Penn runs LAFC. Everybody's freaking out about wearing masks. He's like, no. A month and a half ago, he started a new business, and he's creating masks with logos for all the teams, and he's selling them to NFL teams and NBA teams. And folks, you can be rigid, or you can adapt and find new businesses. I have friends in the restaurant business. Everybody's like, oh, the restaurant business. He's doing takeout now. He told me the other day, he goes, I think I found a new revenue stream. We've been forced to do takeout really well. When we come back, I am now going to have 2 revenue streams, in the restaurant, out of it. We've been forced to figure out at a high rate how now to do to-go orders or delivery items. So, you can be rigid in this stuff, but I thought yesterday was a great example of a bunch of people coming together and say, okay, let's get these 2 great golfers, these 2 football players, let's get Charles Barkley. And by the way, it was a tsunami. The weather didn't cooperate. Tom Brady split his pants. The mic stopped working a couple times, and everybody pulled it off, and it was just people adapting. And I sat there for 5 hours and watched it. I thought it was unbelievable. I thought it was just fantastic. You know, they didn't get a sink. The only thing that could have been worse is an alligator comes out there and eats Brady. I mean, they had basically a tsunami for the first hour and a half of it, and they pulled it off. Great, great stuff. All right, so I saw this story. You know, there's no reason today to really have to buy the album or the CD. You can go to Apple Music. You can go to Amazon Music, pay $7 a month, and get all of it. That's it. Sometimes the marketplace changes, and it should change your consumption to save money. So I saw this story. According to a report, Russell Wilson would love to add Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown is the beyond high maintenance wide receiver. Now, in my entire life of the NFL, there's been this thing called Diva wide receiver, and they've had remarkable power. You just deal with headaches because the guys are so special. Here's the problem. The Diva wide receiver has become the hockey enforcer in 2020. You don't need him. Everybody used to have a hockey enforcer, a tough guy who really couldn't skate, wasn't fast. You can't. Hockey's too fast. It's too skilled. You can't have a slow guy that all he can do is throw haymakers. The hockey enforcer is done. The sport is too fast. The sport is too skilled. He's like 1988. It's over for the hockey enforcer. He's got to be skilled. He's got to skate fast. You watch hockey now and hockey 30 years ago, it's like a different sport. It's so fast. And you don't need the Diva wide receiver. You know how everybody was saying this year's draft class was the best wide receiver draft class out of college ever? Until next year's, when they're speculating that next year's wide receiver class will be better than this year's. Why? Let me give you California as an example. I follow recruiting. Joy knows this. I have no life. I'm on recruiting websites all day when I go home. No, seriously, I'm pathetic. The state of California, the entire state of California, 39 million people, has one elite running back in the state. It's got 17 to 27, depending on the star ratings, wide receivers. It's got multiple quarterbacks, over a dozen. Why? Because kids are smart. The money in football is in quarterback play and wide receiver play. Why get hit like running backs and not make the money and your career ends? The state of California has one great high school running back. Like one 5-star, 4-star, like everybody wants in running back. One. And by the way, last year they had 2. The year before they had 3. It's shrinking. Wide receivers the opposite. Because kids talk amongst themselves. Kids see where the money's going. That's why so many young kids are into tech, and so many football players want to be the quarterback and want to be the wide receiver. That's where the girls go, and that's where the lettuce is, and that's where the stardom is, and that's where the shoe deal is, and that's where the fame is. You don't need the diva wide receiver. The marketplace, like Amazon or Apple Music, has changed. It's giving you this conveyor belt, this surplus of talent. So why deal with Antonio Brown? Certainly talented, but not that talented that he blows up a locker room like the Oakland situation, the Pittsburgh situation. They had to throw him out of New England. By the way, if you can't work in New England's system, I mean, that if that system feels like it's not going to work, it could blow us up, then it's just not going to work. So when I look at the Antonio Brown situation, even 6 years ago, you just dealt with the baggage. You dealt with the nonsense because that's the best wide receiver we've seen in 3 years. They are speculating. NFL scouts are speculating. There will be multiple Pro Bowl wide receivers drafted this year, 3rd round and beyond. Pro Bowl level guys. Scouts are saying there's guys in the 4th and 5th round this year that will make Pro Bowl teams. When the market changes, hockey enforcer, diva wide receiver, either you change, get more skilled, get less needy, or you have no value or very little value. Coming up next, you know I support Jim Harbaugh. Here's another reason I support Jim Harbaugh. Thanks for joining us. Please be safe on this Memorial Day. In Los Angeles, it's The Herd.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
Great to have you in. So I saw this story. I've defended Jim Harbaugh because I do believe there are certain standards when he coached at Stanford and certain Stanfords at Michigan. These are unbelievable schools. To me, Stanford, not Harvard or Princeton. If I could send my kids to any school in America, it would be Stanford. I think it has a good balance of academics, sports, lifestyle, but it's a brain center. And Harbaugh, when he got it rolling there, it was a disaster when he took it over. He was winning 10 games a year at Stanford. That is unbelievable. Winning 11 games at LSU, you should. Winning 10 games at Stanford? Wow. I mean, you're watching David Shaw. It's hard. Marv Levy, I think Bill Walsh coached there for a while. I don't think he was winning 10 games. It's hard. So then Jim Harbaugh goes to Michigan, and he's averaging 9.5 wins a year. The program was in disarray when he got there. They were averaging 6. He got to 9.5, and all he gets is criticism. And I've said, you do get Michigan is a top 3 public university in America. You can't get every single athlete you want into school. It's hard. So yesterday, the Michigan president said, we're not going to have football if we can't get kids into class. See, they have a standard at Michigan. The president's a physician, bioscience background. President of University of Michigan is a top 10 college job, a top 10 college administration job. It's a Harvard, it's a Yale, it's a Princeton, it's a Michigan. It's like a public Ivy is what they call it. Don't get me wrong. Ohio State's a fine university with a great football program. Michigan's a great university with a fine football program. It's the same with Oklahoma and Texas. Oklahoma's a fine university with a great football program. Texas is a great university with a fine football program. And there's a difference. Harbaugh took over a program at Michigan that was a mess. It was sideways. He went 10-3, 10-3, 8-5, 10-3, 9-4. He can't beat Ohio State. Almost nobody can unless they're in the SEC or Clemson. Who beats Ohio State? What top 3 academic power beats Ohio State in football? By the way, the top 4 academic publics in America, UCLA, Cal, Michigan, Virginia. Try getting your kids into those. They're tough. They're hard. So to win 9.5 to 10 games there is unbelievable. It's all about what can you do based on the limitations. And I'm not saying Michigan has a ton of limitations, but it's an academic power. Fox used to have a movie division called Searchlight. They did independent films. They had smaller budgets. They did some great movies. They did Birdman with Michael Keaton, Slumdog Millionaires, Black Swan, Sideways, the movie about. Those are great movies. But Fox didn't expect those to make $100 million. Fox would be happy if they could make $35 million because the budgets were often 12, 15, 18, 20 million. Avengers needed to make $2 billion because the budget was $315 million. Whatever it costs, CGI, actors, get it. So I always look at the budget for Sideways, and I'm like, $15 million? You made a movie that good? You start looking at these movies, Slumdog Millionaire, Sideways, Black Swan, the tiny budgets, make great films. Nothing against Avengers. My son and I loved it. But they had a budget of $315 million. It's like the Yankees in baseball. If it's a sport with no salary cap, the YES Network makes $400 million a year. They can spend for Garrett Cole what nobody else can. The Yankees winning 98 games is not nearly as impressive to me as the Oakland A's winning 90 games. If the Oakland A's can win 90 games, or the Minnesota Twins, or the Seattle Mariners, or the Tampa Rays, they win 90, that's far more impressive than the Yankees winning 98 or 99 games. What are you allowed to win based on your restrictions and limitations? Jim Harbaugh was winning 10 games at Stanford his last few years. Try getting into Stanford. Now, I don't think Michigan's Stanford, but I think it's a great university. John Cooper was fired as the football coach at Ohio State. He won 11 games 3 times, and they ran him out. Harbaugh, if he continues to win 9 or 10, should have a lifetime contract. His university president is taking academics seriously, the student body seriously. We're going to try to get football in. But it is, and Harbaugh, by the way, in the article is quoted saying, I think we can do it. Let's not have fans. I'll do whatever it takes. I mean, he's a football coach. He wants the games. But sometimes, we look at college sports and we don't realize it's not an even playing field. California, Georgia, Alabama, Texas, Florida have way more great high school football players than Minnesota. Last year, the Minnesota Golden Gophers, didn't they win like 9 football games or 10 football games last year? How? Where do they get their players from? I mean, I follow recruiting sites. They've got 4 great high school football players a year, maybe 7. That's one high school in L.A. We got high school football programs down here that have 9 Division I football players on it. One program. That's the state of Minnesota. So is it P.J. Fleck is coaching at Minnesota? You better not let him go. Because that guy's winning 9 games at Minnesota or 10 games. That is a lifetime. My whole life I've been watching Big Ten football. When did Minnesota get good? So Harbaugh, 9-10 wins. Fantastic. It's a real school. UCLA, Cal, Michigan, Virginia. I don't expect them to win national championships. You can win 9 games at any of those schools. By the way, of those 4 schools, who wins 9 consistently in 10? Michigan. UCLA is a mess right now. Virginia's not the same program. I mean, it's okay, but it's Cal's got its momentum going. Cal's doing okay. Who of those top 4s winning 9 and 10 games? Jim Harbaugh. Joy with the news.
No.
Turn on the news.
This is the Herd Line News.
Well, Tom Brady didn't have his best golf outing yesterday.
He had one great shot.
Well, yes, he did have one of the best shots of the day, and he did get his dig in at Charles Barkley right afterwards as well.
Go in! Yeah!
goodness!
Shut your mouth, Chuck. Take a look at that medicine. Get your butt out of here.
That was a great shot. That's like a pro shot. That's like a PGA shot.
It was a great shot, and it was so Tom Brady because the momentum was just building. Everyone's on social media just loving the fact that Tom is struggling. He started to not think the jokes are so funny anymore, and then he hits that shot in perfect Tom Brady style. I loved it. I loved every second of that yesterday.
It was so much personality.
It didn't feel like there wasn't we knew it was for charity. Obviously, they raised $20 million for COVID-19 relief, but first of all, it's Tiger. All right, they're out there playing at the highest level, and then you have Peyton and Brady going against each other. The trash talk. It felt like they were really competing for something. You know, it was interesting, too. So here's Peyton Manning, one of the most successful American athletes ever. One of the most successful businessmen off the field. I mean, everything Peyton Manning touches is gold. And he admitted after, he goes, I was not comfortable. No.
I was nervous.
Would you be comfortable?
No, I'm watching it, and Peyton Manning, and Peyton's a good golfer, by the way. Peyton, since he's retired, he was always a good golfer, but he's honed his golf skills. Peyton's a real golfer. Peyton Manning, the great Peyton Manning, who goes on Saturday Night Live and is like a stand-up comedian, he admitted, yeah, this was nerve-wracking. I mean, it just shows you how great golfers are. Peyton Manning, the athlete, playing with those guys was like... And I thought look, Tom was struggling, but I thought they held their own. I mean... I was blown away by... I mean, Tom's still playing... He's not spending his... Peyton's retired last couple of years. Right. He travels around the country and plays golf. Probably gotten a little more golf in. Right. It was great, though. It was really fun to watch it. I hope they implement some of those things in some golf broadcasts moving forward, especially Chuck. Like, he should be on every golf broadcast moving forward. So Carson Palmer knows what challenges Joe Burrow is facing as the Bengals' first overall pick this year, and he hopes that Burrow has what it takes to turn the culture around.
There's a reason they're drafting number one. It's because they're a couple years away. So just go in and know that it's going to be a rough start from the jump, but setting the tone, coming off a national championship, coming off all the success he's had, at the collegiate level, maybe his work ethic can come in and create a culture there that there's a certain level of commitment, a certain level of work ethic and expertise and professionalism that he can bring in. And I hope to see that rub off on all the guys around him.
Yeah, well, you've seen their schedule? He's
going to have a little more pressure and a little less patience than Carson got because he didn't have to play his rookie year.
By the way, Carson Palmer, I could be wrong on this, but I believe Carson Palmer is having lived out west. Carson Palmer and Andrew Luck are the two quarterback prospects. As much as I love Sam Darnold, Carson Palmer and Andrew Luck are the best NFL quarterback prospects on the West Coast, a place that has a lot of great college quarterbacks in the last 15 years. In my opinion, those are the two best. Carson Palmer and Andrew Luck, the best prospects. Elway was before that. Carson Palmer has a losing record in Cincinnati, and he was 6'5", huge arm.
Well, everyone that talks about Carson says he's one of the greatest talents that they've played with. He just wasn't in a great situation. TJ Hushmanzada raves about
If you watch Carson Palmer's college video, he looks like Troy Aikman. The difference is Troy got Jimmy Johnson. Carson didn't.
Where you end up obviously matters greatly. But eventually the idea is if you get the guy, you can turn it around. Now, to put all of that on Joe Burrow's shoulders is a lot. But look, I know this is going to sound crazy. And I love Joe Burrow, and I don't have a lot of faith in Cincinnati, to be honest with you, but it's not impossible. I mean, not to make him into Michael Jordan or anything, but we've seen this before where guys have come into terrible organizations and managed to turn it around. Eventually, you have to turn it around, right? Like, they're not just going to continue in this forever.
You would think so, but I'm still waiting for Cleveland. It's been 25 years. Like, you would think, they're due, but when's the last time Detroit was legitimate for like 3 years in a row?
Well, we talk about this team all the time, the Saints. They managed to turn it around.
Well, they did. They got a superstar coach and a quarterback. Generally, though, if a team is bad for a long time, Detroit, it's generally an ownership issue.
No, it usually is an ownership issue.
Yeah, it's not up to you. We always blame players. It's the rich people upstairs.
Yes.
Yeah.
So speaking of the Saints, Sean Payton has an older, more experienced roster with the Saints this year, and he told Albert Breer that he didn't want to overwork his veterans during this unconventional offseason. He said, I wanted them to focus on two things: handle your family and their well-being, and begin to get yourself in fantastic shape. Don't worry about the X's and O's right now. You'll have plenty of time for those. Even if the league said, hey, guess what? In the month of July, we're allowing this. well, we're not going to be interested in doing that. We'll be ready when the training camp starts.
Yeah, get in shape, take care of your fam.
They are still holding voluntary online sessions 4 days a week, but they're gearing them more towards rookies and the younger guys who need to get up to speed on how the Saints do business. So he's kind of just letting his veterans do his thing, but he's also drawing experience from the 2011 lockout. After not being allowed to talk to players all of that offseason, they went 13-3 and won their division. J.J. Watt was on the broadcast yesterday talking about that, the lockout situation, how this is very similar to that. So a lot of veterans who experienced that time are kind of, going back to that experience, like, okay, this is what I did to get in shape then. This is how I came in. And I'm sure they're encouraging their teammates who maybe didn't experience that, like, this is what's going to happen when you come back. Right. You need to take it upon yourself to be in the best possible shape that you can be in without obviously hitting in football drills that you would normally do. Like, take it upon yourself to be in the best shape you possibly can for when training camp does start.
I don't worry about NFL stars. They've got houses, they got weight rooms, they have land, they have space.
But we know it's very easy to kind of, this is the off season. You don't have the urgency. You don't really know what's going on. There's a lot of, anxiety and, mental pressure right now with everything that's going on. They're still experiencing that too. You have that to kind of lull you down. So you really have to be, a self-starter right now.
Yeah. Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
Joining us now, Doug Gottlieb, sponsored by Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing. Joining us via the Cower Global Satellite Network. Doug Gottlieb Show, after mine. All right, I was so fired up for the golf yesterday. I got up in the morning and played golf. Not well, but I played golf. I loved yesterday. You didn't like it?
No, you didn't call me? You're like...
Well, I have a neighbor, and he wanted to play, and you live too far away. But the point being...
sorry, go ahead.
I was into golf. After they played, I had some stuff to do, or I would have gone hit golf balls. Like, I thought it was a great golf event. I was into it.
Well, that's the not so well-kept secret about golf. Golf makes you want to do what you see on TV, right? So yeah, look, it was great for a Sunday, a Memorial Day weekend. It was awesome. I would only tell you that, boy, Tom Brady's got a lot of Derek Jeter in him, right? Where he's really good looking, he's really classy, he's probably good at everything. Keeps getting younger looking too. I don't know what's that about, right? He's living. You've seen that story on the parallel universe that's the same as ours, only time runs backwards. I think that's where Tom Brady comes from. But he's not interesting. Like, nothing. He just is. And part of it was he was having a rough day, and anybody's played golf, Brazier, you've had a rough day, whatever. And I'm sure he's frustrated because, he's also getting ready for a season. These guys are not, or at least, Peyton's not. But I didn't find him to be nearly as gregarious naturally as Peyton is. Now, part of that is that's Peyton's personality. He is a guy's guy. Everybody loves being around him. But it felt a little forced yesterday, but it was good. It was better this time than when it was just Tiger and Phil. Granted, some of it is quarantine, but a lot of it is you added in Peyton Manning, who just brightened up the entire broadcast.
Yeah, I mean, Jeter, Tiger, and Brady, I could argue, have kind of a stoic personality, whereas Peyton and Phil have a very similar personality, which is they are one-liners, light up a room. So to your point, it is Jeter, Tiger, Brady are kind of stoic. It feels forced if they're trying to be funny because it's not their personality. So I saw a story, and I said this to start the show. When society starts changing and giving you a surplus of something like music, Amazon, Apple, you don't have to pay for albums and CDs. It's there. It's $7. Buy it. I look at wide receivers, Doug, and I follow college football recruiting. The state of California this year has one elite high school running back. They've got 25 receivers, and this has been a trend for like 7 years. Doug, we used to have hockey enforcers. The game's too fast now. I don't think Antonio Brown is worth it. I don't think you need Antonio Brown. What say you?
Well, I mean, first, we don't know if and when he'll be eligible to play, right? Like, he wanted to play with Tom Brady. That's not happening. Now, obviously, Seattle, somehow he's kind of latched on to Russell Wilson. He's not going to play immediately anyway. You can't have these sorts of accusations made against you by multiple women in 2020 and expect to not see any punishment from the commissioner. So I don't. And then what's the price? Do I want to pay him top wide receiver rate? No, but he's out of work and there's limited prospects, right? Like, once the Patriots get rid of you, the Steelers get rid of you, the Raiders get rid of you, like, how many different options are there out there for you? So I think he's an elite talent, Colin. I still think I understand that the pipeline is going to be filled with talented wide receivers, wide receivers for days. But there's a reason that he was widely considered the best overall wide receiver in the league by many people. Julio Jones in the conversation, Nuke Hopkins also in the conversation. There are others. I still think he has a substantial amount of value. And for Russell Wilson, who hasn't had that type, Doug Baldwin, was his best wide receiver up until, obviously last year or whatever. So he hasn't had the top end guys. It would be great, but how many games can he actually play with the commissioner, and what will he do, and what is the price? If it's a minimum salary and he has to sit a couple games, do it 10 times over. They were able to make the Frank Clark thing work for a couple years before they dealt Frank Clark to Kansas City. So I'm not against it. I'm just a realist in there's a lot of hoops that have to be gone through. And he has to keep his – remember, when he was in New England, Colin, it was every day there was a new Antonio Brown story. Are we done with the Antonio Brown stories because there's no more? Or are we done with the Antonio Brown stories because nobody cares because he's not in the league? I don't have the answer to that.
So the NBA came out. It was I know there Michelle Roberts represents some of the players, and her job is ending reportedly, and there's some skirmishes with her and Adam Silver. But I saw a story this weekend, and I'm like, oh, NBA. They're not going to start until late July. And there's like 7 proposals, and I just thought to myself, the NFL pulled off a virtual draft, and had about 3 weeks to figure it out. And at the end, we were like, good Lord, that's clever. Are you surprised at the clunkiness of the NBA, which could start playoffs in a month? The way it sounds, Doug, they're going to go head-to-head with the NFL in the playoffs.
That's a bad idea, right? We've seen this from college sports. We've seen it from baseball. How many years have you and I been saying, as we love baseball, have your playoffs before the NFL season kicks off, right? Don't do it. Don't do it because you're not going to win, especially in terms of level of importance. This is the issue with it. I think Adam Silver is stronger behind the scenes than he likes to appear to be on camera, but just a lack of forceful nature. You got too many chefs in the kitchen. Like, let's go. I don't think they can start playoffs right away. They're going to play in Orlando. The question is, how many teams do they invite? Because the bottom 10 teams in the league don't want to play, and you don't really want them there. They're not going to make any money from being there. It's just volume. On the other hand, they could be very good fodder for the playoff teams to play against, so that you get some, because you can't just go 0 to 100 and play playoff games and expect, 1, nobody to get hurt, and 2, the level of basketball to be good. But I'm with you. Like, let's go. You have a golden opportunity, and you're going to miss that window if you don't start playing basketball games quickly. Granted, people right now aren't going on vacations. Kids aren't going to summer camps because many of them have decided to close for the summer. But as things start to open up, people are going to start to get away from sports for a little bit. You have a sequestered audience. I'm very surprised. And you said something really interesting when you were talking about how golf should take some of what we saw from this weekend and use it for their everyday broadcast. I think the NBA should use a little bit of what we've seen in that, okay, maybe you can't have games till mid-July, but 1, get everybody back and get them up and rolling, decide what you're going to do, make a decision. Somebody's not going to like it, fine, and let's go. Let's start rolling with it. And 2, start to have some people be able to have cameras inside these facilities.
Yes.
And give us some content, because people thought the Tiger King was the greatest documentary ever. If you go back and watch, you're like, wow, these are really, really screwed up people. I feel worse for having watched it, right? But it's the need for content.
Yeah.
Right? My numbers are up. That just means that people want content, even if it's not any good.
NASCAR had 6.5 million people. Goulet made a good point in our meeting this morning. He's like, I'm not sure there's 6.5 million diehard NASCAR fans. Generally, it may be 4.5, 5. But I'm a big believer. Laker practice, LeBron, AD, put a camera. Let's go.
Yes.
I'll watch.
Microphone. Let's go. And it doesn't have to be anything. You don't have to have a set. Like, we'll watch anything right now. And the more we watch things, the more we relate to people, and they become part of our everyday lives. 2 weeks is a habit. I'm with you. I don't understand. Look, the baseball thing is a little bit more complex because their CBA expires next year, and they're trying to not set a bad precedent.
Right.
Because the players already got destroyed last time in the CBA negotiation, and Tony Clark's fighting for his job. But the NBA CBA's agreed to, like, let's go play some games. Most players I know want to be back in the facilities. They're already working out on their own anyway. Figure out a way to get it. I would try and get games the 4th of July weekend, if not the weekend after that. But late July and you start pushing it towards August and into September, that's a bad idea.
Good stuff. Doug Gottlieb, Fox Sports Radio after our show. Nice house there. Doug's done well for himself. Very nice. There we go.
Sorry about that.
All right.
Sorry about that. Yeah. It's your wife's favorite kind of dog, by the way.
Oh, what's the dog's name?
Odell Beckham Jr.
All right, that's weird. Appreciate that, Doug. That was strange. Well, do you have a cat or a dog? I have Buddy, Yossi, and Fatso Kitty.
No, I have a plant.
Oh,
which I've managed to keep alive for the last 6 months, which is a big deal for me.
You're like the independent film analogy. The standard is, a plant. You have a plant.
We gotta start small.
Certain responsibilities.
Right.
Coming up next, everybody gets Tom Brady's winning this Brady-Belichick divorce. Like, we all get it, right? Wait until you hear this. Coming up next. Memorial Day. It's The Herd.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
So it's good to have you back. One of the things, if you've not watched our show before or you listen sparingly, is that in my life watching quarterbacks, if a guy comes out of college into the NFL and is really special, he pops at practice. Russell Wilson came in. The Seahawks had just paid a quarterback 8 figures, Matt Flynn. Russell Wilson, by week 3 of the preseason, Pete Carroll decided, I'm starting that guy. Lamar Jackson at practice was so amazing for the Ravens. Rookie year, he was going to be developed into John Harbaugh watched Pro Bowl defenders swing and miss trying to tackle him, and they put him in. If you're really special, even as a rookie, everybody takes notice. Very quickly with Jimmy Garoppolo, there was buzz in New England. This is the next Tom Brady. That's why Brady wanted him out. So Jarrett Stidham gets drafted 4th round in New England. They've got him in camp all year. Bill Belichick, camp, exhibition games, season, 1,000 practices, right? Or 100 or how many practices they have. Yet Belichick wanted Brady back. Old Tom Brady, expensive Tom Brady. Belichick wanted him back. A story comes out today that, and I've been keep hearing, oh no, Jarrett Stidham, unbelievable. And I'm like, so Belichick was willing, reportedly, to move off Brady 2 years ago for Garoppolo. And Brady was coming off a Super Bowl winning season. Belichick was ready to move off him. Brady off his worst season in years, an older, less effective Brady, Bill wanted him back. And this is not a shot at Jarrett Stidham. But I keep hearing how great he is. And I'm like, in all these practices, he's been there now how many months? Bill Belichick hasn't gone, wow. He did for Garoppolo. Rob Ninkovich played for 7 years. Super smart guy, very good football player, very Belichickian, real understanding of the football world. Says he thinks Brian Hoyer will start this year at quarterback, not Jarrett Stidham. What? I got nothing against Brian Hoyer. If he walked into this room, I wouldn't know what he looks like. Brian Hoyer. Are you going to tell me if Justin Fields of Ohio State got drafted last year, or Trevor Lawrence, or Kyler Murray, or Lamar Jackson, or Russell Wilson was drafted, Brian Hoyer would beat him out? Hell, you'd know 4 practices in. I got myself a star. And this is why Brady is going to win this divorce. Brady's going to have great weapons, a fun head coach, warm weather, Gronk is back, and Tampa's biggest problem, right tackle, they solved it in the draft. This whole thing, I know we love our football coaches, but Bill Belichick in Cleveland went 36-44. And then he went to New England before Brady started and was 5-13. I know. There's the Matt Castle season. So let's deep dive on that. Here is Tom Brady's numbers the year before he got hurt. 16-0. 70% completion rate almost. 300 yards a game. 50 TDs, 8 picks. 117 passer rating. 16-0 regular season. The next year with the same players, Matt Castle, nice guy, blown out 3 times, 10-5, 230 yards, 21 TDs, 11 picks, and a passer rating under 90. Oh, well, Belichick's such a great coach. I mean, this is not a shot at Matt Castle. It shows you how great and influential and transformative Brady's talent is. Nobody would think you could just replace Michael Jordan. He's called the GOAT. Why are we so sure it's going to be so easy to replace the GOAT in football? Does everybody get this? The Jets are better. The Dolphins are way better. Buffalo has been good for 2 years. They'll be better. They added Stephon Diggs. Brady is surrounding himself with significantly better players. New England doesn't have a single Pro Bowl level player on offense. Not one. I'm not even sure if they'll have by the end of the year, depending on their quarterback efficiency, if they'll have a Pro Bowl running back, tight end, or wide receiver in their division. And you just think they're going to fly through it because Bill's smart? Folks, Bobby Knight, the minute he thought his system mattered more than recruits, it was over. Greg Popovich, the minute he didn't buy into Kawhi, it was about the system, it was over. Listen, I love my football coaches too. But Tom Coughlin, when Eli Manning started aging, got fired. And Pete Carroll got fired twice and was 7-9 in Seattle, pre-Russell Wilson. This nonsense that Belichick's just going to keep winning in a better division with no weapons, and Brady's going to win this thing. We're going to look back in a year, and we're going to go, New England's old, inexperienced at the wrong spots, expensive, not very athletic, not dynamic offensively. Tell me who on that offense would scare a defensive coordinator. They can't run. Even their receivers, N'Keal Harry and Mohamed Sanu, are talented, but they're not burners. You don't have to double them. They're just really talented dudes. So I watched Brady yesterday. He looked tall, happy, lean. Hit a ball in from 200 and some yards out. I don't know. All right, around the corner. We do it on every Monday show. All year long. We used to just do it in football season. And then people said, why don't you do it more often? So we call it Colin was right, Colin was wrong. And there are certain weeks I've got a lot more wrong than right. And we'll have that coming up. Plus, Peter King and Chris Broussard both joining us next hour. Thanks so much for joining us. Stay safe on Memorial Day. Nice weather out in most of the country. By the way, that drive-in, Joy can walk. She's so close to work. That drive-in, 4 cars on the L.A. freeway. Nice day. Hour 2 next.
Want more Herd? The Herd streams 24 hours a day, 7 days a week within the iHeartRadio app. Search Herd to listen live or on demand when...
people person, in general. So not like going to the beach like, hey, can I, hang out with you strangers?
So you go and hang out, bring a book, and you're good.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of space.
And the beaches were beautiful.
California beaches, though, I will say, are different than other places in the country.
Because they're so wide.
Depending on where you are. Like Malibu's kind of small. But yeah, I mean, most of the beaches here are massive. You have plenty of space to not be around people.
And it was, how many people were there?
Maybe like 100 people or something.
All
but
right.
like very spaced out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's outside in the sun and there's, some wind and the salt air and
it's beautiful.
And it's needed.
Yes, it's needed.
Got to get out of your house sometimes.
Yes. Oh, no, I think it really is needed. I think we're increasingly seeing it's harder to catch the virus outside, go out, give yourself some space. So every Monday we do this, Joy. It's called Colin Right, Colin Wrong. I have a lot of bold predictions. I have to hold myself accountable when I whiff, and here we go.
Where Colin was right?
Troy Vincent, and I got to give him credit for this, acknowledged the NFL pass interference replay rule was a disaster. You got to give Troy Vincent credit. He goes, I failed. It's me. I failed as a leader. We rushed it in. The rule was a lingering topic of confusion and controversy last year. Because of one play in New Orleans, the NFL massively overreacted. We never understood it. Stop babying the Saints. It's a great franchise. They don't need help. It's a bad call. It happens. By the way, the game went into overtime where the Saints couldn't get it done on offense or on defense as the home team. This was ill-conceived, rushed into protocol. It never made any sense. And Troy Vincent, to his credit, this is what great leaders do, acknowledged, yeah, I totally whiffed on that.
Where Colin was wrong.
You know, I've always said Peyton Manning's brand is relatable. Oreos, mid-sized sedans. Tom Brady, you know, a little bougie. He's a little more aspirational. But yesterday I was wrong. It was Tom Brady that was relatable. He couldn't golf. He split his pants. He didn't understand golf drops. He seemed completely frustrated. He didn't know where his ball was. The shot tracer stopped following him. And Peyton Manning, by the way, looked like the country club guy. He was just a great golfer. Funny, glib, amazing. Brady was unbelievably relatable. All that was missing was a Bud Light and a Marlboro. I mean, he was Mr. Normal Golf Guy in America, totally flummoxed by a great sport, but a difficult one.
Where Colin was right.
I was always worried about the NBA starting back up. It is a social media-driven sport. They often react to social media, overreact. Story comes out yesterday. They may not start until they're just working on starting late July. Folks, they got 7 different proposals. Get it together. These are the youngest, most conditioned athletes, statistically safe. Players are ready to go. Now, Michelle Roberts and Adam Silver, there could be a contentious relationship there. She's on her way out representing players. I'm not saying it's going to be perfect, but this is like, do they realize NASCAR's starting, UFC starting, boxing starting, golf starting? I mean, by the way, players were golf yesterday, all sitting next to each other and talking next to each other. This is what I worried about. Too many stars, too many opinions, too many chefs. Get it together, NBA.
Where Colin was wrong.
I always said the Chicago Bulls are the greatest basketball team in the 90s I've ever seen. And the reason is they weren't the greatest shooters, the best ball handlers. They were tough. They were tough guys. I thought, good Lord, Scottie Pippen and Horace Grant all up in their feelings. I thought modern NBA players were sensitive. Scottie Pippen's apparently livid about Michael Jordan's documentary, and Horace Grant freaked out last week in the documentary, and Isaiah Thomas is defending himself, and Michael hasn't played in 20 years. It's a documentary. It was remarkable to watch all these tough dudes get incredibly sensitive because, Scottie Pippen doesn't like the way he's portrayed. What? As irreplaceable on the Bulls? Michael Jordan said, you can't even mention my name without Scottie Pippen. Scottie. You buried Scottie. Michael Jordan doesn't compliment anybody. He said you're the most important basketball person in his life, and he learned so much from you. I've never heard Michael say that about anybody. So I guess the Bulls weren't as tough as I thought.
Where Colin was right.
But I've also said Steph Curry's the most underrated player and person in my life in the NBA. Totally gets it. Incredibly selfless. The new story this weekend, he's recruiting Giannis. This would be the second time he is bringing in a superior player / physical presence to the team. I'm just not sure how many professional athletes would do that. It's going to mean less stardom. When he brought in Kevin Durant, it did not help Steph Curry's shoe deal. It muddied the waters. They said it was not good for the shoe deal for Steph Curry. This is why he continues to be so underrated as an American iconic superstar. He understands the value of winning, of being a great teammate, of being on television in May and June. All athletes, this is how it is done. Don't worry about getting your shots. For the record, he brought KD in and wanted KD to stay. It was KD who struggled with the relationship and not getting the love from Bay Area fans. I just love everything about Steph Curry.
Where Colin was wrong.
John Clayton is reporting that Russell Wilson wants Antonio Brown as a Seahawk. Just when I thought Russell Wilson was perfect, he wants Antonio Brown, who is selfish, odd, self-absorbed. If you can't work in New England and Pittsburgh, and those are about as formidable as football cultures in America, I mean, the Rooney family, if you're struggling to get it to work there, I don't know what to tell you. So I don't get it. I don't think the Diva wide receiver is necessary anymore. And I am shocked. They just got the locker room right again. It's young. It's fun. If they'd not fallen apart physically, they could have gotten to the NFC Championship. They just rebooted it last year, and you're back on track. And this is the answer. Don't get it.
Where Colin was right.
Thank you, David Spade. Tom Brady's erosion has been overstated. Last week, according to NFL.com, next generation stats, Brady's the fourth best deep ball passer in the NFL, which is remarkable when you consider he doesn't have a deep threat. There was no Gronk. Mohamed Sanu's talented, but a middle-of-the-field guy. Julian Edelman's a slot guy, doesn't go deep. Philip Dorsett, kind of a bust in Indy. As Phil Simms said on my show a couple months ago, this idea that Tom's a shot fighter, can't make the throws, is ridiculous.
I hear people on TV, his arm is not as good. What are you watching?
His
arm might be better now than it's ever been in his career.
Yes. Yeah, Tom Brady's fine. He's never been athletic. That's not his game.
Where Colin was wrong.
I've always been a fan of Dak Prescott. I don't think he has a great arm. But I always like the team thing, the leadership thing, kind of the get-it quality. He kind of galvanizes people. Now we've got potentially a holdout. He wants to be paid $35 million a year. He's not a $35 million a year quarterback. Now, I understand that he hasn't made a ton of money so far, and he's let him do a lot of wins. Like, I get it. But, he got drafted in what, the third or fourth round? I mean, that's and last year at the end of the year, he was 1-6 against playoff teams, 8 touchdowns, 8 picks. I get guys wanting their money. I do. But if $35 million is the I'm not showing up to camp number, Dak, one of the reasons everybody was all in on Dak, because you were kind of a find. It wasn't the arm. You weren't mobile you weren't Russell Wilson mobile. You didn't have a big arm like Mahomes. You don't run around like Lamar. Franchise tag appears to me to be the most reasonable conclusion to this, and I think Dak's being unrealistic.
Where Colin was right?
Well, the NFL has always, I think, and I believe this, what they get more than any other league is they're a television show. This week they're proposing what I think is an absolutely brilliant idea. The onside kick, it's not going away, but teams will have the option to have the ball at their 25 on a 4th and 15. What does it mean? It means the hands team won't decide games. Patrick Mahomes will, and Aaron Rodgers will, and Carson Wentz will, and Kyler Murray will, and all these Jared Goff will, and Jimmy Garoppolo will. This is great. The NFL realizing the onside kick, it's not good television. What's good television is a do-or-die Patrick Mahomes buried in his own territory, 4th and 15. This is why the league is just fantastic. They've always understood. The greater we are on television, the more leverage we have with TV networks, the more money our players, our executive, and our owners make.
Where Colin was right?
Well, I said when LeBron moved to L.A., people joke because I said it so many times, I called it the mogul stage, where basketball was 50% and movies were 50%. This is why the Sixers and the Rockets never had a chance. Well, last week he had a new movie deal signed with Adam Sandler, and he produced the Let's Graduate Together show that was on every network. We always believed the reason LeBron was coming to Los Angeles, and this is what happens with Michael Jordan when he went to Washington, is that players, you go from being great for a few years, and then you win titles, and then you graduate to the mogul stage. And if you watch what LeBron's doing, he's now doing on a weekly basis. TVs, networks, movies, digital, and he's doing it very, very well. He is conjoined with all the best people in Los Angeles in the entertainment business. But this is why when we said he's going to be a Laker, he's not going to be a Sixer, he's going to be a Laker, he's not going to be a Rocket, this is why. It's really become exactly what we thought it was going to be, which is he's a mogul, and during a pandemic, he's a mogul and not even a basketball player. And that's what's happened. Good to have you in today. Peter King is joining us next. Carson Palmer, thoughts on Joe Burrow. All of that live in Los Angeles next in The Herd.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
NASCAR is back, and it continues tonight on FS1 with some Xfinity Series racing. Then tomorrow night, catch the Gander Outdoor Truck Series. And on Wednesday, it's the NASCAR Cup Series live from Charlotte Motor Speedway, beginning at 8 Eastern on FS1.
By the way, John Goulet not only loves NASCAR, John bets NASCAR. Like a lot. John loves...
I mean, is there something else to bet on right now?
No, I'm saying you are the guy. He's a NASCAR fan on our set, and John bets NASCAR. So if you're into gambling, this is one of the amazing things here. All the money raised yesterday for COVID, it was $20 million, which was just amazing. But this has been, it shows you, sports gambling was something. I used to live in Vegas, so I've always said, like, listen, if there's opportunities to do it, people's free will. They want to gamble. Let them gamble. Okay. It's fine. It's remarkable how fast the sports gambling thing, Fox Bet and others, has exploded in America. You're going to see more and more stories like this. And I think it really engages fans. Like you're sitting around the house and you're betting Brady. Yeah. I'm sitting there watching that thing yesterday. I'm like, I wasn't betting it, but I'm thinking to myself, if I had $100 on a hole, I'd be sports gambling to me has always been just an intensifier of what we love. It just gets you watch a football game, the game gets out of hand, and you think, I can win free dinner tonight.
Right. Well, I mean, it's also exploded with the ability to bet online.
Yes.
As opposed to having to do it
to a sports book or something.
In other ways.
Yeah. So, Joy Taylor with the news.
No. Turn on the news.
This is the Herdline News.
So the Steelers have a lot of hope going into this season with Ben Roethlisberger coming back from injury. And Juju Smith-Schuster is expecting big things from Pittsburgh and Big Ben this year.
I think it's going to be a big year for us. I was very, happy with the draft pick that we got. Being able to draft a running back, being able to draft Claypool, good defense. We already have a solid defense. So that's what, our missing piece, was Ben. And I think that coming up this year, it's going to be a great year for us.
It obviously was the missing piece last year. I mean, they were in the playoff conversation with Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges, which is pretty tremendous. But my concern is not if Ben is going to be the quarterback. It's what he's going to look like as the quarterback. He's coming off of shoulder surgery, as we know. He did, say he's back, and Juju said he's back, and posted the video of him throwing to Juju and some other guys. It looks like it's all trending positively, and the Steelers have the utmost confidence in him. It's almost kind of disturbing how confident they are in the situation. Right. I still think that they need to get a veteran, strong backup in there for Ben, but the Steelers, for the most part, to be honest, have been kind of disappointing to me over the past couple of years.
I think
the fact that they didn't have more success when they had Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, and Big Ben healthy together, that's a disappointment.
When Peyton Manning was losing to Brady in his career, I never felt like it was Peyton. I felt like sometimes Belichick was winning the battle. Brady had better defenses. Like I felt a lot of times like Brady was beating Peyton, but Brady had the better defense and maybe the coach. With Big Ben, I always feel like when he and Tomlin face the Patriots, their arch nemesis, New England's a little more prepared. Ben's not quite as committed as Tom. And so, like, I put it on them. Like sometimes Phil Mickelson lost to Tiger. I don't blame Phil. Tiger's generationally ridiculous. I don't blame the people that lost to Jordan, John Stockton, Karl Malone. Jordan's the best basketball player ever. But to your point, with Pittsburgh over the last 4 or 5 years, they're just not as buttoned up as their rivals.
Well, it's one thing to lose when you're playing your best. Okay, then you just lost to the better team, and you played the best that you could. But I just feel like the Steelers always have a great amount of talent, very exciting players, explosive playmakers, and they haven't been able to put it together over the past couple years. Now, look, I'm from Pittsburgh, so I'm being very harsh because there's a mentality in Pittsburgh that you should be competing for a Super Bowl every single year. It's not good enough just to make the playoffs. That's not the standard in Pittsburgh. It's a championship organization. So that is why to me it's disappointing. I hope that Big Ben comes back 100% and they have a great year, but the division is different as well this year. Like, I don't know what to make of Cleveland. I'm going to wait and see. Right. But we're assuming they're going to be more competitive than they were last year. Last year was a disaster for Cleveland. And we know what the Ravens are now. So you got to win your division first. I have a lot of questions. In 2019, Matt Nagy decided to not play any of his starters during preseason games. But he's not going to make that same mistake this year. He said, that's one of the things I look back on from last year that I'm not happy about, that I made a decision to do in the preseason. Number one, I think it's good for them to have it. But number two, it sets the mentality. So that's not going to happen this year. I'm not a huge fan of the preseason.
I'm not at all.
We don't think that it's going to happen, or at least I'm not. We have no idea what's going to happen.
It'll be shortened.
It may be shortened this year, which may, moving forward, be a better standard. I mean, the football is not great. It's exhibition, so other than just having something to watch, we're kind of just looking to see if a player pops here and there. But I do think having some preseason games is necessary to get the callus and, like he said, the mentality going. Not playing any of your starters at all, I don't think that's a good idea. You do need some movement out there. You need to get into game speed and all of that, but it's just too long. So whereas I'm with him on this, some of the starters do need to play. I think we both agree, enough with the extra long preseason. So finally, the Nationals unveiled their World Series championship rings. Each ring has 108 diamonds, 32 sapphires, and 30 rubies.
You're not going to be wearing this out, is what you're telling me.
The left side features the player's name and number next to some of DC's most iconic landmarks, and the right side features the phrase "Fight Finished" and the commissioner's trophy, along with 4 diamonds to represent the team's 4 NL East titles and a single ruby to represent the franchise's first World Series win.
Man.
And actually on the inside, there's an image of a shark in honor of outfielder Gerardo Parra's walk-up song, Baby Shark.
Yeah.
You know that song?
Yeah.
Baby Shark, do 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 do. I think it's really an awesome ring.
What would that cost per ring?
I don't know, but 30 rubies. I mean, it sounds like...
Is a ruby expensive?
I don't know. It just, rubies they sound fancy.
Yeah, they do.
Ruby. 30 rubies. These rings have gotten so massive, though, that you can do... think of everything I just described that's on this ring. How can you even fit that on a ring? It's like a block. It's pretty awesome, though. Every, piece of this ring has something on it.
Yeah, it doesn't look like something you could wear out much.
I think I would wear it.
Really? Like a skating
ring. A World
ring.
Series ring?
Yeah.
You're not wearing that out for a nice dinner?
Maybe so.
In your wine glass with your ring?
I guess. Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
Peter King, 3-time National Sports Writer of the Year, NBCSports.com, is joining us on the phone right now. We got a couple of things to get to. Peter, one of the things I've always appreciated about the NFL is its willingness to adapt and evolve. I thought they pulled off the draft beautifully. Free agency they made work during this virus. I love what they're putting on the docket this week, the 4th and 15, an option alongside the onside kick. Your thoughts on it, and will it pass?
Colin, I love the 4th and 15. It was, of all the things that Greg Schiano's ever done in football, this is his idea.
Oh.
It happened in about 2012 when he was the coach of the Bucs. And everybody said, "Oh, kid, go sit in the corner and just coach your team. Shut up." And now everybody loves this. And I don't mean everybody either. Look, it needs 24 yes votes by owners this week. I think that's going to be tough to get. But this is going to be just like the extra point when they were trying to fix it and make it not just, a formality, the extra point. So they moved it back a little bit. This is going to pass eventually. I think it's 50-50 if it passes this week. But all it is an option, because now the onside kick is 90% negative play.
Right.
There's only a 10% chance you're going to recover it. And so I think the NFL basically said, let's make this a potentially exciting play. As I wrote about in my column, I mean, pick a team, any team. Would you rather have the Denver Broncos? Would you rather have Brandon McManus kick the ball into a scrum of humanity, and then somebody gouge somebody's eyes out trying to pick up a ball? Or would you rather have Drew Lock throwing it to Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, and Noah Fant?
Bingo.
I mean, come on. It's just a more exciting play.
It's funny. I'm watching Brady and Peyton Manning yesterday, and the Manning family and Brady, I'm actually surprised at the jabbing that goes on. Maybe I'm naive, but it's very good-natured. It's very funny. Yeah. You've talked to Peyton a lot. I look at Peyton and I think he seems incredibly happy. He doesn't want to run a team.
Yeah.
And I just think to myself, he is aged and retired brilliantly. Are you surprised at how close Brady and Peyton Manning appear to be?
That's a great observation from that golf yesterday, because even though it was competitive and nobody wants to make a fool of himself, you can tell the good-naturedness between these two guys who were once sort of almost Jeter and A-Rod, or Big Papi and Jeter or something. But they are really, really good together. And one of the reasons is Manning really admires Brady. Manning doesn't hate Brady. Yeah, they had a competitive thing going on, and Brady feels the same way about Manning. There aren't many people who can do what they do. Not many people know this, but they kind of combined forces as arch rivals in 2006. And they are the ones who made the NFL allow teams to be able to go and work on the footballs during the week, so they all wouldn't feel like these slippery pieces of wax coming out of the foil every Sunday when they went to play football. So they've always had a really good relationship, and I think that part of it is born out of the fact that Manning can call Brady something and Brady can call Manning something, and they're cool with it.
Yeah. So I saw a story last week. I can love a player, and I do, Jamal Adams. I just think he's spectacular.
Yeah.
But I can still think, based on the salary cap and his position, it may be time to move him. The Jets have multiple needs. They could solve some moving Jamal Adams to a team like Dallas. There are trade rumors, and I said this, Peter, I don't know if it's going to happen. But when the story comes out and you discover what a team would be willing to trade him for, a first and a third, that means, to me, that's a signal to NFL executives, we'll take your phone call. Your thoughts on the Dallas Jamal Adams being traded? I love him. I get it. I think I'd move him. If I could get a first and a third, what say you?
Well, the question is, let's say you could get a first and a third. I think you and I probably feel like the Dallas Cowboys are the favorites to win the NFC East this year. So if the Cowboys win the NFC East this year, let's say, for the sake of argument, they'll have the 23rd pick in the draft in 2021. And then you basically say, okay, then they'll have the 85th pick, let's say, in the third round. All right, Jamal Adams is the best player right now on the New York Jets. All right. Would you trade him for a low 1 and a low 3, knowing that what is wrong with the Jets? All right. And what's wrong with them is that they need franchise players. They need great players. They don't need a first-round pick that they might screw up. And so if I were the Jets, absolutely unequivocally not. I would not trade him until Jamal Adams became impossible to live with.
Would you then, because it would be very hard to pay a running back and a safety that kind of money. If you pay Jamal Adams, it feels like it would signal to me, Peter, that you'd have to probably within short time move off Le'Veon Bell. That just feels like you're paying so much.
That's okay, though. That's okay. He's a short timer anyway. He doesn't really fit in Adam Gase's offense. He's never going to be what he was with the Steelers. That's fine if you want to move off of him.
Okay.
I honestly, Colin, I don't think this is about money. Joe Douglas is going to do a great job managing the salary cap and getting talent, in my opinion. He has to deal with a guy who, it sounds to me and looks to me, wants to be somewhere else and wants to spend the prime of his career competing for a Super Bowl. And he knows that the Jets are probably a couple of years away from having a chance to compete for a Super Bowl. So you've got to try to make this work, because Jamal Adams should be part of the solution, not part of some trading for picks in the future.
Are you shocked we're still over a year into the Dak Prescott negotiations? Jerry's paid seemingly everybody. Well, are you shocked?
To me, Colin, this is one of those deals where we know far too much about this, in my opinion, and we think about it far too much. What are the real reasons why we talk and we write and we investigate, we look into contract situations? We have to ask ourselves as the news media this question. Why do we do this? Is there any chance this year that Dak Prescott is not going to be the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys? I suppose there's some chance, 1% maybe. He's playing quarterback for the Cowboys. To me, that's show up at the start of the season and he'll play. Now, could he continue on the Kirk Cousins path? He might. And if I were him, I think Kirk Cousins has been a real beacon of light for all these quarterbacks who say, well, I'm stuck here. I'll never be able to be a free agent. Far be it for me to try to figure out why Dak Prescott would want to leave the Dallas Cowboys. But anyway, the whole thing about Prescott, it really kind of bores me to tears, because he's going to play quarterback for them this year. Everything else, I just think is just a bunch of talk and prattle.
What do your sources tell you about Jarrett Stidham? Rob Ninkovich says, I'm not sure he'll start this year. Do you have insight on what's really going on there? I mean, Brady to Brian Hoyer doesn't seem ideal. What is your guess what happens?
My guess is that there's something to what Ninkovich is saying, but it really depends on how much practice they all get. If Bill Belichick looks at his quarterback situation, let's say there's a normal training camp, and the Patriots report whenever it is, let's say July 30th, and you've got 6 weeks of practice before the start of the season. It is exactly what's going to happen in Miami. If Tua Tagovailoa is better in those 6 weeks or extremely close, and he's healthy, Brian Flores is playing Tua Tagovailoa. It's the same way in New England. Belichick doesn't care what you or I or anybody thinks, or Rob Ninkovich. Whoever's the best guy in training camp, assuming they have a normal one, is going to play. If they have a stunted training camp, or they report on August 25th and they say, hey, you got to play on September 13th, obviously the lead dog in that pack is almost certainly going to be Brian Hoyer, because it's been around forever. But I think Brian Hoyer playing in September would be a temporary fix, unless he discovered the fountain of youth or something.
Surprised at all by the Antonio Brown stories in Seattle? I was surprised a bit. Were you?
I think it's all fairly meaningless, Colin, because I would be extremely surprised if Antonio Brown, let's say that he works out and some team makes a deal with him, he's still going to get a significant suspension from the NFL. And so if you're signing Antonio Brown, you have to believe two things. Number one, he's turned his life around. Maybe he has. I haven't seen it, but maybe he has. So you have to believe that. And number two, you have to believe that on December 1st, you're really going to need him. Seattle maybe looks at it. Seattle's not afraid of anything. John Schneider and Pete Carroll, they're not afraid of anything. So I could see a team that says, we want Antonio Brown and the impact he could make on us in January. I could see them say, we don't really care if he's suspended for the first 8 or 10 weeks of this season. We need him for the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season so that we get tuned up for the playoffs.
You certainly make that argument, especially in that division where it may come down to a late season game. Probably will come down to a late season game with the Niners, the Rams, Arizona, and Seattle. Peter King on a Memorial Day. Peter, thanks for taking time for our show today.
Thank you, Colin. Take care.
All right. Chris Broussard's around the corner. Some thoughts on the NBA. Are they going to get this thing underway? That's coming up next. Hope you're enjoying the show today. Joining us on Memorial Day. Keep it safe. Keep it here. It's The Herd.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
Hey, class of 2020. We know things have been super weird lately. You were robbed of a graduation ceremony. All that work, the late nights and early mornings, and now you're just supposed to go into the world and figure it out? So, iHeartRadio asked soon-to-be graduates, if you had a ceremony, who would you want to deliver your commencement speech? And then we made some calls. Hillary Clinton, she's in. John Legend, DJ Khaled, Halsey, and Coach K, all in. Over 20 of your favorites, and they're writing commencement speeches just for you. Listen to iHeartRadio's new podcast, Commencement. Speeches are out now on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Oh, it's good to have you back. You know, part of this thing when we do these shows, Joy, I get to see into everybody's living room. I get to see their fashion stuff. I got to see Gottlieb this morning, had his dog next to him. And, Chris Broussard, this is the time of the year that we used to have Chris Broussard on our set yelling and screaming at us. And but now we go to Chris Broussard's house via the Coward Global Satellite Network. I'm told he's in a hotel. So
I'm in a hotel in Michigan, Ann Arbor, Michigan. I'm here with my daughter. We're picking up her stuff. She just graduated. Summa cum laude, I might add.
Yeah, let's hear it.
We're picking up her stuff. She's a chip off the old block.
You should be.
And let me say this first, Joy. I love the hair. Absolutely.
Thank you.
I meant to tell you that last time I was on. Really, really looks good on you.
It looks fantastic. So I was going to give you credit for that art behind you, but it's just, a Hilton. So I get
right.
All right. So let's talk about the NBA's plan to resume. Are there one or two things that are intriguing to you?
The two most intriguing things to me is, number one, the reseeding. And Colin, I've been a proponent of this for 10, 12 years. Now that the West has been so much better than the East, I always felt like they should reseed the playoffs or, not go by East and West, just go by the best records. And the talk is that they're considering doing that. That is something that was on the survey when they're asking the executives about. And I just talked to somebody earlier, and he said this is something they're really considering. It doesn't mean it's definitely going to happen, but it is something within discussions. Colin, what that could do is set up a potential Clippers-Lakers final, not conference final, but final. Now, look, if you look at the standings right now, the Clippers would be on the side with Milwaukee. So they'd have to go through the Bucks to get to the Lakers. But this could really be great. And look, if they start in late July, they're going to be competing with the NFL. So you're going to need as much sizzle and pizzazz as you can get to compete with football. So I think reseeding it would do it. The second thing is the play-in tournament. And a lot of the thinking behind that is that you give superstars or household names like Zion and a Damian Lillard, maybe even a Bradley Beal, the chance to get in the playoffs. And if you can get Zion in the playoffs, then that, creates even more buzz again as you have to compete with the NFL.
By the way, when you talk to individual players, where are they at on returning?
The ones I've talked to feel better about a late July return, even though, it seems like, hey, if you get started early June, why late July? But the players like that because as much as they may be working out individually, getting their shots up now that they've been able to go into the facilities, they've told me that what's most important is 5-on-5. To get in basketball shape, you have got to play several weeks of 5-on-5. That's not typically all that happens in training camp. A lot of that usually happens in the summer. Guys go to Las Vegas, UCLA, different places, sometimes New York, and play 5-on-5 to really get in that shape. They haven't been able to do that. And if they don't get enough 5-on-5, that's when the injuries, the Achilles, the knees, things like that are at increased risk for injury. So they want to get several weeks of 5-on-5 play in addition to a training camp. And so that's why I'm told that late June is a better start date in their mind than mid-June or mid-July.
Yeah.
Late July.
Hey, I don't think I've talked to you about this. So the Michael Jordan documentary was all sorts of fun. But it didn't teach me a ton, but it amplified what I knew. I did learn a ton about Michael Jordan's mom, which is how formidable it is and was she. I mean, she's really a force in his life. But, when I look at the documentary and I see the polls that come out and it's like Michael's way better than LeBron. And I think to myself, man, if I'm LeBron, I'm sitting there thinking, I want to play some basketball. I'm tired of hearing that. What do you make of the fallout? Jordan's amplified status. It seems to have grown over the last month.
Well, look, Colin, I've stated numerous times, I believe Michael Jordan is the GOAT. But there is no doubt that this documentary won over a lot of millennials who only heard about him from me and from you and saw videos on YouTube. Now getting to see a full 10 hours behind the scenes, how competitive he was, the things he had to overcome. A lot of millennials who favored LeBron have now slid over to Jordan. We saw Ja Morant, the great rookie, say, I was always LeBron is the GOAT, but now he switched his mind and he thinks it's Michael Jordan. And LeBron can't win this comparison right now, especially. And I think he should focus on just beating Kawhi, beating Giannis, and competing with the players now. If he focuses on that and wins, then maybe you stand a chance in the GOAT conversation with Jordan. But right now, there's too much focus on Michael. We saw that poll in ESPN where 70% of people said Jordan was a GOAT. Colin, here's how biased things are right now against LeBron. The people voted that they would rather Jordan, that Jordan is the better passer, and that Jordan, they would trust him to pass them the ball more, that Jordan has had more of an impact off the court. Those are three things clearly in LeBron's favor. And yet those went against him. So it shows you right now, everybody is just so caught up in Michael Jordan. And I think LeBron has to make sure, don't get caught up. Don't make any more statements about I'm chasing that ghost and I'm the greatest player in the world. I've talked to Michael, and I don't know how recently he's talked with LeBron. They don't talk very often, but I know in the past, and we know how competitive Michael is, and he, I'm sure, wants to be known as the GOAT. He's never said that to me, but I'm sure he wants to. But he has emphasized that when his discussions with LeBron in the past, he's been like, look, don't get caught up in the competition because we can never play on the court. So neither of us can win that. Just do what you have to do on the court, be the best you can be, and let everything else take care of itself. And I think that's the approach LeBron should take. Don't get caught up in this comparison because right now, especially, you can't win.
Yeah. By the way, so your daughter, a magna cum laude at Michigan. Now, what is her major? What is she going to do in life? What does she want to do?
She wants to be in production, television production. So she is looking for a job, Fox Sports 1.
Yeah.
But she's interested in that. And my other daughter, her twin, is in psychology, also summa cum laude from Penn, University of Pennsylvania.
Lord. Those are good.
Yeah, they make a brother look good. I don't know what to say.
That's
I
good.
married well, I guess.
No, you've done well. That Penn and Michigan. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Great seeing you, my man. And you and Rob Parker on Fox Sports Radio's Odd Couple on radio is just outrageously funny.
Thank you.
Broussard having to constantly steer Parker back into the middle of the road and off the weeds. Good seeing you, buddy.
All right, Colin, see you.
It is what Chris said is interesting, though. Millennials are into MJ. And if you watched it, MJ's pretty rough. We tend to think that young people in America, they're so much different than their mothers and their fathers. No, they're not. We all like the same things. We all want to have a good time. We want to be mostly safe. We'll take some risks, but we're mostly about family. We have some good friends, but not as many as we always claim. And that people want love. They want to be loved. They're interested, but they want to be seen as interesting. They want to connect with people, but they want their own space. This idea that millennials, this generation of millennials, they see the world pretty much like we do. Now, they're a little more adaptable. They may not want to work at a corporation and get a gold watch for 30 years. But you're going to find that millennials liked Michael for the same reason I like Michael. He worked really hard. He loved his parents. He had to overcome some stuff. He was kind of tough. But in the end, the way he hugged Phil Jackson, the way he's crying on the floor, we saw him get super emotional. Like, man, he loved stuff. He loved basketball. He loved his parents. He loved Phil Jackson. That moves across generation to generation to generation. I listen to people all the time, and the young kids and the young generation. My kids want the same stuff I did. They want to have friends, but they want their space. They want to be right, but they're not always right. They're just like Dad.
Well, you raised them.
I know
they should be pretty similar to you.
They're not dissimilar to me. Michael Jordan works for any generation. Work hard. It's not easy. Hopefully you have cool parents and friends. You get some pushback, but winning is fun. But it's hard. It's hard, but it's fun. That's what Michael showed us. Hour 3's coming up.
Want more Herd? The Herd streams 24 hours a day, 7 days a week within the iHeartRadio app. Search Herd to listen live or on demand whenever you like.
Well, I thought it'd be interesting today. Pro Football Focus. I was mad at them for about a day. What was the thing that made me mad? What was the thing, Goulet, that made me mad about Pro Football Focus?
They love Baker.
Oh, they love Baker Mayfield. I'm fine with Baker.
Oh, and they slighted Russell Wilson.
They did what?
Yeah, the all-decade team with Russell Wilson.
Was that it?
I think you've been mad at them more than once, but it never lasts long.
But I'm happy again because they give me football data, and that's what I like. Bruce Gradkowski played in the NFL for over a decade, and he is a senior analyst with Pro Football Focus, and it's just fun stuff. He's going to join us via the Coward Global Satellite Network. He has got a wonderful Toledo, Ohio tan. The sun is blaring in Toledo, and he's out there in the pool with his kids having fun. So you're going to examined quarterbacks entering their first season with a team. So I'm going to give you several and tell me what the tape shows. Let's start with Jared Stidham to New England, Bruce. What does the tape show us?
Well, first time the sun has hit Toledo this year, Colin, so I had to be out there with my kids getting a little on this bald head. But I think Jared Stidham, you have to look at him. I think he's learned under Tom Brady for a year. He's around great coaching staff. The thing that kind of concerns us is his ability to be accurate in a clean pocket. And in college, it was around 50%, his clean in-rhythm type throws that he should make. Now, like I said, he's around good coaches. He's in a good system, a good defense behind him. If he could just execute what the offense asks of him to do, he can be successful. A lot of young quarterbacks make the mistake of trying to do too much. So if he can play within their system, he could be okay.
But you're worried because you're saying in ideal situations, he's not accurate.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the tape showed in college. In ideal situations, and I'm talking about there's not pressure around him. There's no one at his feet. It's passes he should make that are open downfield that you need to hit. And when you're about 50% accuracy rate in those ranges, there is some concern because at the NFL and the next level, and I made that mistake a lot. I missed a lot of wide open throws, Colin, and you have to hit those. So Jared Stidham, he had really good feet, timing and rhythm coming out. I like that about him. But, man, at this next level, if it's there, you got to hit it.
Yeah, that's what makes Brady special. He doesn't miss those. Let's talk a guy I love, Tua. I think he's an it guy, a special guy. What does the film say at Alabama moving to the NFL?
I'm with you, Colin. He is an it guy. He has the it factor. I like how twitchy he is. He has really good base about him when he goes to throw all the time. I love that. He's very instinctual, a very instinctual player. That's something you can't teach or coach. So watching his film, especially a lot lately, I love the way he plays. He might not have the biggest arm, but he has enough. The thing about Tua that you have to love is his competitiveness, but also you have to say, hey, my man, we need you on the next play. We need you the next series, the next game. Throw that boy away and let's live to play another down. He can't afford to have those injuries like he did in college. but that can learn with some knowledge and being coached the right way.
Yeah, Mark Sanchez told me the same thing. There's some things he does on tape that are clearly instinct. You can't really describe him. He just sees stuff he shouldn't see, and that's part of it. So let's go to a veteran, Phillip Rivers. Now he goes to the Colts with Frank Reich. Look at his game. Look at Frank Reich. First year with the Colts. Does it work to you?
It may be a new team, but it's not a new system. And that's a leg up Phillip Rivers has going to Indy. And for being the age he is, playing indoors, it's going to help. Being back with Frank Reich. Look, Phillip Rivers played great with Reich as his OC in 2014. 5 consecutive games of 120 passer rating. So with Rivers, he's going to play with the best O-line he's ever played with in his career. And when he's protected, he could be on. The last 3 years, he was top 5 in under pressure with all his dropbacks. So he was always under pressure throwing. So this year, I'm excited to see what he could do with a good offensive line in front of him. And Frank Reich, a quarterback guru, leading the way.
Let's go to Joe Burrow, who plays in a division with excellent pass rushers, and I haven't the last couple of years loved the Bengals' offensive line, a little bit of a sieve. How does his game and that O-line work?
Well, you know, a young quarterback, it's tough. But Burrow played well under pressure last year. He was over 60% with his completion percentage or accuracy rate for us. But there is a concern. Some things that I watch on film is how instinctual is he, and does he realize when he's getting cover zero pressure or where there's going to be a hot throw? And you're going to face that a lot in the AFC North. It's a physical division. I played in it with the Bengals and the Steelers. I think Joe Burrow, what he brings the most, though, is his moxie in the locker room. He's an it factor guy. He's a temperature changer. He's someone that walks in the locker room, automatically has that kind of groove about him that guys want to play with him. So he's very smooth and rhythmic. I think he could do a good job, but it's going to take a few years to build some pieces around him.
Tom Brady in Tampa. Now, the concern is Tom's got a system he's comfortable with. Bruce Arians sometimes demands more downfield throws. How do you think he works in South Florida?
Well, that's going to be the difference. You know, Josh McDaniels was unbelievable at his packages going into each and every game. You know, the quick game, finding mismatches, running backs on linebackers. Love Brady's short trade there. I might have to get a pair. But Tom Brady, man, he just outworks everyone. You got to love him. He is still grading really good in a clean pocket with no pressure around him, over 90 last year. And now to go to a better offensive line in Tampa Bay, more weapons around him than he had in New England. Man, I think this year is going to be great for him, especially it's going to be a breath of fresh air with Bruce Arians and Byron Leftwich, 2 guys that are awesome to deal with. Byron played the quarterback position. So Tom Brady's going to have a lot of input, and he's got the team around him, so I'm excited for him. You
held 21 Toledo passing records when you left school, played in the NFL for 11 years. You know about preparation. You were in the NFL during that like lockout labor situation they had in 2011. How will it affect quarterbacks like Stidham, Tua, Phillip, Burrow, Brady? First year, no OTAs, maybe truncated camp.
It's definitely going to be different because right now, Colin, you're installing your offense, the playbook, and then you take that and you go out on the field and you throw with your receivers. You get the timing and rhythm down. Then you have OTAs and you can work out the kinks and feel the speed of the game, how much different it is than college. And then once you get to training camp, you're installing the playbook again from scratch. And then you get those live reps again. So, you know, they're just going to be a step behind. You're not getting the live reps now with OTAs. You're not around your whole team getting that feel. So it's going to take more preparation, and it's going to take a lot of reps during training camp to get used to the speed of the game. You have to make decisions that much faster. The pocket collapses on you a lot quicker in the NFL than it does college. So those guys, whoever are more mentally prepared and know the offense better going in and then can understand defenses and blitzes will be better off, but it's going to be tough.
Finally, Dak Prescott. I like him, don't like him at $35 million. You watch the tape. You see the grading at Pro Football Focus. Is he making a mistake taking every penny he can?
You know, Colin, in any good negotiation, you have to work together. And right now, Dak's young. He's athletic. He stays healthy. That's what I like about him. He's an ascending player. But when you talk about looking at Tom Brady's success, he didn't have that much success just by himself. It was a good team around him. And I think Dak, if he wants to go on a run, he has to understand he needs to leave a little extra for his team to make some moves, to keep guys, because they have the team now to get it done. Now, on the Cowboys side, you do have the pieces, a solid O-line, the weapons around Dak. Don't shake up the quarterback position now. You're this close, Mr. Jones. You're this close. Just get a deal done and put this behind you, because the Cowboys are really close, Colin, to get into the Super Bowl.
Senior analyst, Pro Football Focus, Bruce Gradkowski. Good talking to you, man. Nice tan. Enjoy the summer.
Thanks, brother. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Yeah, it'll first year, no camp, rookie quarterback, Joe Burrow. I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to go look at the Bengals schedule. People, more and more people are coming out. Peyton Manning and now Carson Palmer have come out to say it's going to be really difficult there. Keep your head up. That kind of says it all. Joy with the news.
No. Turn on the news.
This is the Herd Line News.
Well, another rookie quarterback that you like a lot is Tua. We don't know if Tua is going to be ready to play when the NFL season starts, but he continues to show that he's doing everything he can to be ready to play when the season starts. One of Tua's trainers posted a new workout video of the quarterback, showcasing his quick footwork during a recent rehab session. I'm assuming we have this video. He's doing the ladder drill. So, you know, like when you put the ladder out.
Oh,
and
with your feet.
But it's real. Do we have the video? I guess not. Oh, we're having technical issues. Okay, well, that's unfortunate because the video is actually really good.
I think I may have seen it online. I thought it was old video, but it's new.
Yeah, it's new. And he's doing the ladder drill, but also throwing a heavy ball. I was never a huge fan of the ladder drills.
Is he impressive, by the way?
It actually is. I actually like this video. I thought everyone kind of made a bigger deal out of the one pre-draft than was necessary because he was really just throwing. This is showing a little bit more agility. Again, neither one of us are doctors. We don't know what we're looking for, but I think he looks good, and it's a positive sign. Here we go. There we go.
Yeah, I don't know if that's
really good footwork. But the thing that's impressive to me always with these drills is I always forget what the footwork is supposed to be when I'm doing these drills. So I have to get into a rhythm of it. He's going like forward and backward and then sideways and then throwing the heavy ball. I couldn't do that. Mm-hmm. I'm also not responsible to play quarterback for the Miami Dolphins. So it's easy to assume that Gronk chose to come out of retirement and join the Bucs just to play with Tom Brady. But he said there was another person that influenced his decision the most. He said, everyone keeps asking me, did Tom get you to Tampa? Well, of course, it didn't hurt Tom went to Tampa. But Tom was like the appetizer, the main course. The main reason why I came down to Tampa is because my mother lives 2 hours away. She can get to all my games, all 8 of our home games whenever I have days off. She's 2 hours down the street, and I get to see her.
Oh, he said that on the Ellen DeGeneres show.
Isn't that so sweet?
That is very nice for Gronk.
It's really, it makes sense, though, because she's right there. Getting to be able to go to all of his games is a big deal. Whenever Jason was in Washington, Jason Taylor, my brother, played for the Redskins for a year, and my mom got to go to all the games because Pittsburgh is, I think it's like a 4-hour drive or something.
Can you take a train from Pittsburgh to D.C.? Pittsburgh doesn't have a train system, do they? D.C.
Yeah, no, they do, but I don't know if you can take one. I'm sure you can.
Yeah.
But it's not a bad drive anyway. So it is nice to be able to be close to your family, especially, throughout his career. She probably hasn't been able to make it to many of the, I'm sure she's gone to a lot of games, but to be able to go to every single one of the home games is a totally different experience.
Yeah.
So it's like high school again. So finally, we all enjoyed watching the match yesterday. Phil and Tiger, Manning and Brady, and Eli Manning made his Twitter debut on the weekends, and he was live tweeting the events. So he had a couple funny ones. He said, I heard Peyton wants me to be his caddy. I would, but I can't always carry the team.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if that applied to the last couple years of his career, but he also said if that rain delay had gone any longer, I was getting ready to join TikTok to kill time.
Are you on TikTok?
I have a TikTok. I just think I'm too old. I think I'm too old.
Well, it's a dancing
I've made a
video.
significant effort. Well, there's like you can do like some funny videos and some spoof videos, but it's just, my niece is a huge TikToker, and
So's my daughter.
Every time I'm with her, she tries to get me to do TikToks. I'm not a good dancer, so it doesn't really work for me.
So my daughter thinks it's awesome, and I'm like...
Kids love it.
Oh, they just think it's the greatest thing ever.
I mean, I understand it. It's funny, it's entertaining, and it's cool for them to be able to like see the TikTok.
So
and then
what's
make
the
their
difference
own.
between Instagram and TikTok? It's just video.
Well, TikTok is more like funny videos. You remake other people's videos, and then you do like dance challenges.
Goulet, are you on TikTok? Yeah, you're out of the. You bet NASCAR. You're really out of the.
Wes and I had planned to do a TikTok with you and I before everything shut down that was going to be funny. Now the time has since
there's
passed.
So many new platforms. My thing is, can't I just work on like the Twitter, Instagram? I'm on Instagram now.
Yeah, it was a big move for you. It was a significant move for you to get on
followers.
Instagram. That's
good. Just enough people. If I break news, I can tell you.
You've started to enjoy Instagram though.
A little bit more. I forget about it. Like I'll go a weekend. I'm like, Wes, our social media guy, will be like, hey, can you post something? I'm like, yeah, I'm just busy.
Yeah, well, that's part of the reason why TikTok is hard for me to pick up, because I have a lot going on.
Yeah.
And it's like another thing to do.
Caffeine show, this show.
Yeah.
You got a lot of stuff.
I got a lot of stuff.
Yeah. There's Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
By the way, everybody likes Joy's hair. Joy changes her hair every day, and you went to this style about 2 weeks ago, and you are sticking with it.
Thanks. Well, yeah, that was the point, is that it can stay in for a while. Because we don't have hair and makeup right now. Obviously, we're working with very limited crew.
A lot of people like your hair.
Well, thank you, guys.
Very popular.
Thanks.
Goulet, yours could use some work. Joy's got hers down. Got hers down pat.
I was actually going to do that to mine, but she did it first, so I couldn't.
So Carson Palmer came out talking about Joe Burrow. Carson Palmer played in Cincinnati. He's been critical of the organization. I mean, let's be honest about it. Cincinnati's got an owner that's been cheap. Their owner's their general manager. They have shown loyal to Marvin Lewis for a long time. Zach Taylor, I think, could be very good. Came from the Rams organization. Smart young guy. Don't doubt that he's going to be successful. I don't. I thought they played. There was a couple times last year I thought they were kind of getting their act together. They had some injuries. Their defense was atrocious. Free agency, they've gone out to get some. But do we have the sound? Carson Palmer talking about what Joe Burrow's going to have to deal with in a now incredibly talented division that includes the Steelers, the Ravens, and the Browns.
There's a reason they're drafting number one. It's because they're a couple years away. So just go in and know that it's going to be a rough start from the jump, but setting the tone, coming off a national championship, coming off all the success he's had, at the collegiate level. Maybe his work ethic can come in and create a culture there that there's a certain level of commitment, a certain level of work ethic and expertise and professionalism that he can bring in. And I hope to see that rub off on all the guys around him.
Well, it's funny because sports fans, I always say on this show, I'm trying to get it right. I'd like to be right, but I'm going to be getting it right more than be right. Fans love to be right. They go to Twitter, I'm right. You do realize I'm going to win the Joe Burrow argument. Like, it's done. Like, you think Burrow's going to be great, and if you go look at the schedule this year, just put the Cincinnati schedule up. The division's never been better defensively. They're not beating the Chargers week one. That's a great defense with maybe the best young safety in the game, Derwin James. Bosa and Ingram pass rushers. It's a great roster that's now played together for several years. Chargers blow them out. At Cleveland, at Philadelphia, those defensive fronts, it's over. So let me say Jacksonville's a game at home, the only game they're favored. I think you got to consider Jacksonville. We'll mark it down as a winnable game. At the Ravens, this is not competitive. That's the best roster in football. At the Colts, once again, this is a really good football team. They've drafted incredibly well, and all the young guys have played together for 2 and 3 years. I'd say the Browns at home, and Cleveland's better, but it's a big rivalry, Cleveland at home. Let's give them a shot. Titans, I think you have a coaching mismatch. I think you have a culture mismatch. Nobody really thinks they're going to beat the Titans. Titans are actually, Titans are funny. For years and years, you think of them as a losing franchise. They've been 9-7, 9-7, 9-7, 9. They win a bunch of football games. Cincinnati doesn't. Then they're at the Steelers. You're not winning that game. Then comes the easy part of their schedule. I say at Washington and home against the New York Giants. Again, they're not going to be favored, but Washington may not know their quarterback situation. I will say, I'd rather see him play the Giants early because the Giants have an entirely new coaching staff. So by week 12, that's 12 weeks minimum that Joe Judge and Jason Garrett and the staff can work together for New York. That's long enough for a staff to kind of get their act together. Cincinnati would have a much better chance with their young team against the Giants in the first month. Then it's at Miami, not winning that game. I think Miami's going to be one of the surprise teams. Cowboys, Steelers, Texans, Ravens, all significantly better rosters. So you're looking at 4 games here where you're going to go into it, and you may have some matchup advantages. That team may have a young staff. They may be a little unraveling Washington at quarterback. That's it. Like, I'm going to win the argument. So for those who are like, oh, Joe Burrow's this and Joe Burrow's that, Joe Burrow's going to get mauled this year. He is not going to look good. He is going to be overwhelmed. Yes, Cincinnati has added some free agents on defense. Folks, it's not close. They are favored in one football game. I hope Joe Burrow is good, as Joy and I always say. Football stinks with bad quarterback play. Like you think I'm rooting against Baker Mayfield. No, I'm not. What I'm rooting against is bad Baker Mayfield. Cleveland's bad enough historically. I don't need bad quarterback play with Cleveland. What I'm rooting against is Baker when he unravels and can't be quiet. Burrow I'm rooting for too. But in the first year on Twitter, I'm going to win this one. Over and over and over and over. Just set yourself up to win arguments. This one, I'm going to win. You go look at that Cincinnati schedule. Their big break is at New York, Washington, at Miami. That's the soft spot of their schedule. And I don't think Miami, they beat New England at the end of last year. I don't think that's an easy game. Coming up next, we watch Tiger and Brady and Phil and Peyton Manning. If you kept Tiger and Phil, would there be legitimate golfers that you would love to see play each other where they'd smile for the cameras, but deep down, it'd be competitive? My dream matchups. Our match next.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
Stay safe. Thanks for keeping it here on Memorial Day. And Joy Taylor's joining us. So we watched the match yesterday, and it was Mickelson and Peyton Manning, Tiger Woods, and Tom Brady. And, Brady and Tiger are much more stoic. Mickelson and Manning are much funnier guys. But I thought it was really fascinating TV. Gottlieb has texted me. He goes, "You didn't sit there and watch that thing for 4.5 hours," and I actually did. I watched the very last hole. Then I watched the Barkley, see if Barkley could get a bogey and raise money. I watched the whole thing. I thought it was fascinating. But it made me think. There are some really interesting matchups in sports. If you kept Tiger and Phil, what other matchups would I want to see? Because I'm watching this and I'm thinking, this is going to become a thing now. This is going to become a thing because Tiger and Phil, it's great for their brand. They can make a lot of money on this. You could make money for charity. So here are the matchups I'd want to see. Let's start with this one. I don't know if we have, we have some golf music. How about Steph Curry against Michael Jordan? Both hugely passionate golf fans, both from North Carolina. The best basketball player, the best shooter. Actually, Steph has played in some PGA Tour events. Michael has always let it be known that he's pretty good at golf. Steph is easily the best current NBA golfer. That I would pay to see. That would be good.
Would Steph talk trash to Michael?
I think on the golf course he would.
That would be amazing.
How about Brett Favre against Aaron Rodgers? They have played in celebrity pro-ams. They appear to be tighter now. But let's be honest about it. Two Packer legends. Favre would be long off the tee. He's country strong. And Aaron's actually supposed to be a really good player.
And they're both very sarcastic.
It would be funny. You get the country sense of humor from Favre, and then you get Aaron's kind of snarky California cool stuff. Rodgers I've never seen Brett play, but they're supposed to be both really good. Both have won Super Bowl. This decides it. How about Brady and Jimmy Garoppolo, two Northern California guys now? Now, I'm sure they'd get along for the camera, but, Garoppolo's first full year as a starter, he made the Super Bowl.
Might be some nice tension there.
Brady was very vulnerable yesterday. So Brady would be like, okay, last time I was on television, I was not great. So Brady would be hyper competitive. These are matchups we'd like to see with Tiger and Phil. I think, how about Derek Jeter and Alex Rodriguez? Alex is the highest paid baseball player ever. Jeter's 4. You know, A-Rod moved to third base because Jeter, there was always a sense that Alex was the better athlete, Jeter the better team guy. Again, I think they'd play really nice on television, but as 2 of the best shortstop talents of all time, former Yankees, I think it would. I think Jeter would be so competitive in this matchup. Both now guys, Florida, they're getting plenty of golf time right now, plenty of links time.
That's true.
How about Jim Harbaugh against John Harbaugh?
Yes.
John Harbaugh is competitive. Jim Harbaugh is a word for several stages above competitive. Now, they faced each other in Super Bowl 47. John won. Look, even in that picture, even when you see them together, you can just tell Jim just wants to beat John so badly.
Well, plus brother trash talk is just
next level.
It's so fluid, too. You've had decades to practice.
You know they've played golf together, too.
This will be great to watch.
Okay, here now I'm getting to my favorites. Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold. Now, by the way, Darnold was a high school linebacker, basketball baller. Baker's more the walk-on, but you'd get Baker give you all-world trash talk. Darnold would be he'd be a little Brady, he'd be a little corporate, but a few zingers if you got you got into him a little bit. I would pay to watch those guys play golf. How about Russell Wilson and Richard Sherman? All-time most vocal athlete, least vocal. There were rumors that Richard Sherman didn't always think Russell kept it real. There are a lot of people out there that think Russell's very corporate. You know, he's very good front-facing. He's doing a lot of nice stuff. I don't know if Richard Sherman's a great golfer. He's a great athlete. But we did find some pictures of him golfing. So I would guess Richard Sherman now has got some time to golf. California guy. And finally, this may seem strange. Zion Williamson against Shaq. I've never seen a 7'2", 330-pound golfer, ever. I want to see it. We found some Zion Williamson footage where he swung and broke the club. Here it is. Watch. And the club head went further.
That's amazing.
But I said, I would just like to see, they're 2 of the strongest NBA bodies I've ever seen. Oh, there's Shaq golfing. Look at how.
And we know that.
I have my friend Perry Rogers represents Shaq. He has to talk to him 3 to 4 times a day. He said he's the nicest guy. He said you cannot believe what a good guy is.
Yeah.
That's why I like Shaq and Zion.
You know what's funny about this whole hypothetical scenario? That we built this off of who would be the best trash talkers, and we're talking about golf.
But that's part of it, right?
But that sprung from it yesterday. It was like that was so fun to watch.
Well, like when you go golf, that's kind of, you get a cigar. I mean, I'm not a cigar smoker generally, but golf is, you
bet on the holes.
You bet on the holes. You get a cigar. You play. That's the fun of it. You kind of elevate it up. You've got so many opportunities in golf because so many times you're static. You're just sitting there waiting for your guy to hit. You're talking to him before he hits.
Right, but when I think of scenarios where you're going to get the best, highest level trash talk, I'm thinking about NBA finals or a summer pickup game, or you're lining up from someone on the football field. Golf is not golf publicly for the public to see what you're saying is not what pops into my mind. But that's what happened yesterday.
Yeah, here's Peyton Manning talking some trash with Tom Brady before the event yesterday in the match.
It's hard to get to him, right? But so who, do you bring Eli? Could do that. You bring Nick Foles, maybe.
Cheap shot.
I was thinking maybe Belichick. Bill Belichick, caddy for me, and just to see how that kind of would have worked.
Wow.
I mean, now it might not have been good for me either, because Bill brings up bad things for me as well.
And then Brady said, well, I don't know how you'll play today. You're a dome quarterback. This weather's not, Peyton, this weather's not great. No, I thought it was, it's funny. Like, I don't think I'm a sports traditionalist. I think, like, if you were raised in a traditional family and big family and your tradition and you go to the same house every summer with your family and you vacation. I didn't grow up like that much, so I'm not a sports traditionalist, so I'm for new stuff. I told you when I moved to Vegas, I became a huge fan of like Daredevils, Evel Knievel stuff. I love those. I love events. So I like sports events.
Right.
I told you about the flag football game I saw a few years ago. The flag football guys play the retired NFL guys, pros and Joes kind of stuff. I thought this was great. And I got to be honest. I thought the production values of it, think about this. You had guys in carts. You had horrible weather. They're on this. This is not like a stadium where you've got everybody wired up. You had people moving around.
No, I think the production was great.
I thought, considering the elements, it was unbelievable. This is not like a stadium, and you know where everybody's going to be, and your cameras are positioned at the 50.
And they were all good sports about being mic'd up, and even on Brady's shot, his mic pack fell off, and yeah, it was great. I would say I'm a traditionalist when it comes to sports. I like the tradition of things, but you have to be flexible and able to evolve. Like, keep the core of whatever the competition is, like what makes us love the sport. But you've got to evolve. Things change. Society changes. Environment changes.
I used to be, 40 years ago, I was a baseball fan. When I was in my teens, I was a baseball fan. And I think one of the things that has turned me toward football, I know it's one of the things, is their ability to change.
Yeah.
Like, they're always just like, what's a better way to make this a better television product? And I think that's some of the reason that baseball wears me out at times. It's like,
you can't be rigid.
I'm not, so I can't deal with people or businesses that are. Like, adapt, let's go, let's move, let's change, let's get better. The NFL is voting this week on changing the onside kick opportunities. Like, that's classic NFL. All right, we'll see you tomorrow. I want to thank Doug Gottlieb, Peter King, Chris Broussard, and Bruce Gradkowski. Be safe. See you tomorrow.
Want more Herd? The Herd streams 24 hours a day, 7 days a week within the iHeartRadio app. Search Herd to listen live or on demand whenever you like.
Hi, I'm Robert Lamb.
And I'm Joe McCormick, and we're the hosts of the science podcast, Stuff to Blow Your Mind.
This show is the altar where we worship the weirdness of reality.
If anybody ever told you you ask the weirdest questions, it is time to come join us in the place where you belong, the Stuff to Blow Your Mind podcast.
New episodes publish every Tuesday and Thursday with bonus episodes on Saturdays.
Listen to Stuff to Blow Your Mind on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Some podcasts are light, fun, and fluffy. My podcast isn't. I mean, unless you think a podcast about a teenager picking up dead bodies for a living is light and fluffy. I'll tell you this much. Growing up in a funeral home is killing me. My name is Grant, and these are my funeral home stories. Listen to Season 3 of My Funeral Home Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
和对的甘愿也会哭的情愿。